start it like that. Do we have a quorum of the board? Yes, we do. Everyone's here from the board, and our secretary, Barbara, will note that the meeting is in session. Lastly, we'll just approve, as a matter of business, approve last month's meeting that many of you were here. That was on November 6th. Do we have a motion to approve?
I approve.
That is approved. All right. So just a quick, short intro, since many of you were here last month, and for those, no one signed up on Zoom. I might not have that on right, but I am recording this, so people can go ahead and watch this. I'll put it on YouTube, so you can go ahead and digest this. But as an introduction, you'll recall on November 6th, a month ago on Saturday, Jason Bellows of the County Board of Supervisors came and presented some ideas, but very preliminary, no details, of the county to spend some money to preserve and protect the shoreline here at Windmill Point. And in particular, Westland Beach over at the end of the road. If you were here and have seen the damage that the storm at the end of October did, I think we have to agree it is a serious problem. For those of you that have been here for decades, in some cases, you've seen the changes. So part of this is, of course, what's in it for us? Well, what's in it for us, of course, is our property, our beach, that this whole area is suffering from erosion and could use some help. So they're proposing a public-private type of cooperation or partnership for a project. But that project is preliminary stages. What can they do? That's where we come in. So at the end of last meeting, we decided we would come up with some, well, of course, I talked to many of you, and of course, many of you spoke to other board members as well. And here are some of the things that you brought up. And so as I go over this, maybe Jason, you could come on up. And a big hand for Jason Bellows.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here again today to follow up on what we started to discuss back in November.
Okay, so the first thing, Jason, I want to ask is, as some of you may know, the county already has a proposed breakwater and some projects that's supposed to be underway fairly soon that is actually independent from this larger project. Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, the current arrangement here is this is what's already on the final permitting stages, is to protect that 50-foot section at the end of the road and the small access, other additional 50 feet that basically Mr. Anzo has granted us already. And so this is already for the VMRC and through the Army Corps of Engineers and awaiting final permitting. And then we can send that out to contract bid and start that particular phase of the project, which is pretty much a done deal.
Can I ask y'all to speak up just a little bit? I know I'm sitting right here on the front row.
Can everybody hear me? Did everybody hear what I was saying about that? Do you have any questions about that particular piece?
But just, yeah, so for this map, this is our unit, my unit, so and here's the beach. So this is what's there. It says Old Sunken Groin right there. So this is the new breakwater, right?
Yes.
And here is the Westland Beach. So these two things would benefit us in our project to begin with, right?
It definitely, this would begin to protect you all definitely from the, I guess, the southeasterly type of wind that would come here.
Mm-hmm.
You would still face, I guess this would be a northwest direction wind that would come this way. When you have storms blowing that way, that would be where your breakwaters would come into play more to protect when we built out that way.
But Linda, you had a question?
Pardon?
Did you have a question?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, to be clear, your house is where?
Somewhere right in here.
Oh, okay. And the road is?
This is the road right here,
Okay.
the current road.
Okay, so the beach area going, that's the mobile.
And I mean, we're actually probably eroded back even more from where this may be right now. Because it eroded about 15 additional feet from that storm. The last storm erosion eroded at least 15 feet back from where it was prior to the last October storm. Yes.
When do you think this could take place?
This part right here,
Mhm.
as soon as the permit is issued, we can move forward with the bidding process and getting a contractor out there, but in my opinion, it's kind of urgent, so I've been pushing the county to basically get ahead of the permit and try to start the bidding process and start to find a contractor process fairly soon, like
You're
now,
talking about the growing,
for this part of the phase of the project, because it's,
Has the permit been applied for?
oh yeah, it's been applied for, it's been noticed to the residents, and it's just sitting somewhere in the bureaucracy at the VMRC.
So the question
Army
is,
Corps has already approved
So the
it.
VMRC is funding this?
No,
so
the county's gonna fund this.
Oh, okay.
when would you think that it could be done?
I would like to see this finished by spring, but I mean, that would be dependent on the contractor, being able to hire the contractor and get the materials in this environment. I couldn't say. Those are unknowns.
Just for clarity, it's 2 new groins or 3 new groins?
It's basically this piece here, this, and this. This is the old piece.
Right.
It'll be taken up and removed, and that rock will be repurposed. It's in some capacity.
And what is that on the beach side?
This right here,
No, way over.
where, over
Right
here?
here, yeah, what is that?
I think that's existing stuff that's over here where the broken concrete is. I think that's old existing material. Yes.
Does that part of those drawings, does that include the concrete at the marina being used as the base for those?
Probably not for that, because we're not gonna touch that until we can protect with that with the additional armament on down toward the channel, if you can build the rest of it, because if we tore up that prior to it would probably create further erosion over here.
In your, one more question, in your, was it VMRC, is that who you deal
Yes.
with? Is that concrete impacted erosion downstream at all?
I don't know that it may deflect off of that, I don't know, they haven't, I couldn't say.
I couldn't find anything on your website that you told me to go to that says anything about VMRC. But you have it on your website?
On the county's website?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's linked from the county's website, but the permit is like you can get to the permit, go to the permitting page for the VMRC and look up the
No,
permit.
it wasn't on the county site, it's on the VMRC site. You put in that permit number, and it gives you all the information about that permit that's already towards the end stages. So yeah, if we can get them motivated to release that permit, then this would start pretty quickly.
Well, what my question, basically is, if you leave the concrete and you put those breakwaters up, are we gonna notice any difference because the concrete's still there? In my opinion, that is part of the problem. That, the concrete is the washing of it out.
I mean, the concrete for that portion is probably helping retain that, I would assume.
It may be retaining the land, but I'm saying downstream, where we are, it's causing problems.
I mean, potentially, it could be, the wave action could be deflecting off that and pushing more material or energy downstream, I'm not sure.
Well, that would be my question.
But if we built this, that would certainly stop that,
But I thought it
at
was,
least partially, because it would
Yeah,
absorb.
but how would we know, say for instance, you said 5 years last time, right?
What do you mean?
You said this, in 5 years, this will help us for 5 years possible.
I mean, it's something always gonna have to be thought about, being maintained, and the levels of those rocks maintained on a constant basis and constantly monitored is what I mean, because sea level rise will also be coming up over the years, and subsidence on the east coast is still occurring geologically, and so those two are in cohesion together to raise sea level over time, and we'll have to constantly, just as docks around here, that was my point in that matter, over the years, docks have been raised and raised and raised, so newer docks are higher than the older docks, and you can clearly see that if you go to any creek around here, and the succession they're built, they're higher and higher each time. And so over time, I'm just saying that's gonna have to be monitored and maintained in a consistent manner. It's not just something we build and forget about it. As you can see what happened already with the existing ones that were built years ago, they're now washed in behind them. And that's why ultimately the larger project's more important, because we need to have armament from that point all the way down to this point, past the marina channel and out front of here, and then these additional breakwaters here, and I think that will ultimately protect most of this entire peninsula.
And they sent me, just not because of being on the board or anything, I did get an email from the county, just because our property is adjacent to this, just as an alert.
By law, the adjacent property owners have to be notified when anytime there's a project. If it was somewhere closer in a creek and you had adjacent property owners across the creek, they would also have to be notified. But
So I
because
do
it's
have
crossing
that,
the
and I'll
river-
be happy to share that. I'll send it to everybody if you like, because I think it probably has the permit number on it.
It probably does.
So you can get all that.
I've got a copy of the permit application, there's 55 pages of information. That's,
And then there's all the rebuttals and emails and documentation that's going back and forth to different permitting agencies.
The unpermitted and proposed breakwaters or armament, as you call it, to protect this beach and the landing beach, how many feet?
80 by 18 is this one. 50 by, looks like 18 feet by 10 foot. So, and this one's looks like about 30 feet by 18
No,
feet.
I'm talking about the proposed new breakwaters.
Well, let's actually, Carla, if you don't mind, that's great, we're gonna start there. So I just wanted to make sure that people know, and I'll be happy to send this, I will, I'll just do it, send you what they sent me.
What about the
This is
Zoom?
already gonna happen.
Are we doing the Zoom? Is it on now?
I can't get, I don't see
I
any
just got
participants. What's that?
Yeah, I know Mike
The
Brown
Zoom.
wanted to come by Zoom.
Everybody that's Zooming wants to know why that on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, can somebody,
Are you on
More.
the Wi-Fi?
yeah. Background. I started the meeting.
Jason,
I didn't
I
Yes.
have
thought at the
notification
first
either.
meeting, which I was not here, so I'm not clear, I thought it was proposed that, I thought the county said they were gonna move all of those cement slabs.
I think we will eventually, but I don't think we want to do that right now when we first start this part. But I mean, I'm proposing we move that as part of the grander project.
No, but if I can,
Well,
Linda,
let's,
what that is,
Well, they just
this
need to-
permit
oh,
and the
shoot.
work they're talking about is
They need to
to
click on
protect
the link that I sent
50
yesterday.
foot
Okay,
beach
so
at
it's
the end of
just
the
right
road. That
across
has
the road.
nothing to
Email
do
that I
with
sent
anything
on
else.
Zoom yesterday.
This,
Okay.
Right, right.
That's already gonna happen.
that's gonna happen,
That's just, hey,
not up for
here's
debate.
what's happening no matter what.
That's basically fixing this is basically fixing what was already there. This was already there in some capacity in the past, and these are water now and washed out.
join meeting.
And it needs to be rebuilt and re-armored because it's another storm here in a while,
I
watch
remember
15
those,
to 20 feet away.
seeing those rocks on the end of the road. We
I
had-
stood down here 2 years ago with the
Yeah.
Army Corps of Engineers and the VMRC, and that's how long this was dragging on for bureaucratically.
They're there still like us.
And they both, Jay Woodward and the guy from the Army Corps both saw the urgency. But, yeah, here we are, COVID happened and all these things been working from home, is just one excuse after another why it's like stuff is taking too long.
I'm just gonna end this meeting then. A leave meeting, see what happens.
But yeah, as part of the grander project would be to tear up that concrete and restore the beach with sand and build those additional breakwaters.
Well, I'm sorry about the Zoom people because I thought I set it up right. And
You're fired.
They can get the video.
So, if you put the,
Somebody can live stream it if they have their social media.
if you put the additional drawings that were talked about in front here of the beach, is that in the plan or?
It would be in the proposal, I mean, out here.
Yeah.
It would be in the proposal, which is in that proposal right there.
And how long would that take to do?
I mean, that's kind of why we're here today.
Okay.
I mean, before it could actually
So
get built, we're
this
talking
is
at
your
least a
property.
year.
This is Lancaster County property that you're gonna.
This part is county
address.
property. There's a small section here that basically is y'all's property that just connects down here somehow. And then there's additional 50 feet of Mr. Hanzo's property that he granted us back when we did this deal. And so
all
that's
right, well,
basically what this is proposed to basically.
I'll send another
help
email to
shore up.
these people.
And in turn, that's going to, for the time being, at least somewhat protect this portion right on the other side here too. At least from the southeast of the direction.
If you're the host, sign in, and it'll start to be.
I thought I was signed in, that's, I mean, it's got my picture right there. And then why do I have to sign in?
It works great when you can use it, when it
Starts.
networks or something
Figure out
doesn't
how
work
to
right.
use it, right?
But I take solace in the fact is, like, every time you watch a news channel, they're interviewing somebody who's on.
Try to
TV or
join that
something,
again.
halfway through the drop off anyhow, so even on Fox and all the major news networks, it all is the same, and they eventually drop it.
I mean, there it is. It said I'm signed in.
I think Verizon's struggles down here.
It's just us waiting for the host to start the meeting, sign in if you're the host. You can sign in on here if you want.
I don't know what my password is. That's the problem. It's right here. Let me do it on my computer instead of this. As I deal with this, I do want to say, I'm sorry if I missed anything. But again, we're talking about something that's already been approved. So, you know, the big issue here for us is that, you know, potentially would come up for some sort of vote on our part, which isn't this, is this larger project, which is to protect the shoreline, but also part of this public-private partnership that's been proposed is what do we get out of it, which would be expanded breakwaters and groins, which is, I think, what you're asking about, Carlisle, so we'll get to that. But part of the public proposal then is going to include a fishing pier and also greater access, you know, getting rid of the concrete, I suppose, and
Yes.
making this beach, expanding the beach here for the public. And with this fishing pier, that brings up a lot of questions. So I'm going to ask questions to you that everybody has asked me, and maybe that's a way to proceed.
And I'll do my best to answer these to the best of my ability.
And also keeping in mind that this is it, pretty much everything I said is what's known, because there is no detail.
This is a really preliminary kind of
This is
idea and agreement that we can get these elements down here in some capacity.
So this is a fact-finding mission right here, or creating some ideas and facts. Well, how, do you have an idea of what the breakwaters would look like if you look on that map? Where would the...
I think this smaller diagram that I brought last time is pretty much a similar diagram to what those breakwaters would look like. This right here.
Okay.
And if y'all, I don't know if everyone had a chance to kind of look this over, or this was passed around after the last meeting. But that's basically what they would similar to be like, and they would basically be an extension of this. So imagine this would be the first phase, there'd be a gap, there'd be another one like that, and then another one like that, basically. That's how they proposed. There'd be two series. This one would make another series, and there'd be another one of those, and then probably another one over here. I think there's how many of them? Looks like 3 and a couple of spars, so there'd be 2 additional breakwater systems built in that direction. And they're 80 foot long by 18 foot wide. Did that answer your question?
Not totally. When you pointed up there, the breakwaters, you answered the question about whether breakwaters would be on the marina, protect the Marina Beach. My question is, where and how big and how many will the breakwaters, proposed breakwaters be for the landing beach?
You mean going this way,
Going west.
going west? So, I mean, I think,
So many breakwaters from the pier downstream.
so where's y'all's property in, right, somewhere over here? So, I mean, the current breakwaters are basically, you have that spur that's coming out here.
Yeah.
And then you'll have those series of, that first series of breakwaters basically out here. And then they would continue on in that fashion somewhere along here like that.
Okay. And
And
then,
then if, in this deal, to get it done, you all
To go
want
west.
to view a proposal, it would look like it would probably be another series of them like that. Would probably have to be, basically, it would have to be dependent on the final
And the
design.
size.
I'm not a shoreline engineer, so that would ultimately be what would be needed to protect
but
the
appropriately
altitude zones,
sized.
but based on the 2 buildings, it would look like you need one for that portion and one for that portion. And I think we could put that on the table as part of this plan,
Okay.
something to get the deal done.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And, I mean, it'd be built to the same scope and capacity, whatever's needed. And that would be ultimately, again, shoreline engineers and contractors, but based on the type of shoreline force here, it's gonna have to be pretty big rock.
Just, all you need to do is walk or drive over to Beach Villa, and what you have over there is comparable to what you'll see
Yeah,
here, if we live long enough.
I mean, you can, that doesn't take very long to happen. You can see the difference here. That's exactly what would happen.
yeah.
And we would, they didn't, I don't think as part of their project, I'm not sure they brought much sand on site, but we would nourish this project with a dune in front of it,
I have one more question, Jeff,
which would then naturally wash down. We can't pour the sand in the water, that's illegal, but we can build it up.
on the beach.
We can build it up behind it as a basically a temporary dune and let natural erosion wear it down.
So my next question is, for the proposed project, you know, if, to build the number of breakwaters in front of the landing beaches and here, where is the money coming from? Do you have to apply for grants? Do you have the money to do it?
The county we did some borrowing years ago, and the county earmarked a fair amount of large sum of money for public access, and we're beginning to, we use some of it to develop over here. If we had to, we would borrow additional money, capital, to fund these projects, in a bond of some sort. But it's in our comp plan, it's been in comp plan for 20 years, it's something the board's determined to get done. It's lower access in the public, to the public in this part of the county. We have that one, the boat ramp, but it's been a long-term desire of the other board members to build a fishing pier and have more public beach access, because, I mean, we're the river realm, but we public cannot get to the water. And that's a problem, and it's something that needs to be solved.
I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but
Yep, that's what I'm here for.
if everything goes the way you would like for it to happen, when would you perceive that this could be completed?
If I could wave away all the bureaucracy and get what I'd like to see it done, break ground in less than a year, but I don't know how long it would take. But I mean, in 1 to 2 years, I'd like to see this project done.
Knowing the steps,
Knowing the steps and then the bureaucratic process of getting through the permits and how fast we can push that along.
2 to 3 years?
I want less than that.
Okay.
I mean, I have 2 years on the board in this term, and I want to get it done before I have to face another reelection or decide to retire.
Jason, just curious, right underneath fishing pier proposal, there's a wide range of dollars there.
I don't know what this project is going to cost, but I know I have votes on the board of supervisors to make this happen, and I think we can do it within that range of money.
Okay.
So ultimately, what that will be a cost of is like when we get the final design and it goes before the board of supervisors and it has a $2 million, $3 million, $4 million price tag, the board members will have to decide, can we afford that? Do we want to afford it? Can we make it all happen? What do we have to give up? Can we build? I mean, there may have to be some negotiation there, but in the day, I think we have at least that much money in the votes to make that happen. And I think we can do this with that.
Do you anticipate a property tax increase because of this?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Definitely not. The county is in better financial shape than we've ever been, and in the last 20 years, we finally got a reserve that's in good shape. We don't have to borrow money to get through the year, to wait for their tax filing. And we've got all this COVID money we received from the federal government. I mean, the sales tax economy has boomed down here as a result of more people being here after moving out of the cities. So we have an opportunity down here to reinvent ourselves a little bit and get back on footing, because we were really in a slide here. And still, we face a lot of headwinds in rural America and rural Virginia and places like that. We're still losing population and we're still declining. And so ultimately, the people that remain have to foot larger and larger portions of a bill that doesn't get much smaller, because there are certain things in government that are going to cost you X amount of dollars, and it's going to be spread over the people that you have. And there's not a way to really get around that.
Is there any money available from federal government grants?
There are some potential avenues for grants, but then they come with whatever the strings that are required. Like over here, there were certain strings and requirements that we had to meet. And so those would allow different layers of things and different people in the negotiations that we'd have to deal with when we pursue those. I think we have the money and the funds earmarked for this. It's been a long-term goal. I think we should move forward. It's not allow any more bureaucratic processes to stall it.
Jason, are there other areas in the county that are potential water access for the public?
Yeah, we have a number that we're under scope. We already owns 2 properties, and we're moving forward on those regardless of this project. And so, yeah, the county is actively pursuing multiple projects, and we're going to develop those at a pace irregardless of this project.
So where are we in the priority?
This is a high priority as one of our earmarked sites, in my opinion. I mean, it's just as important as any of them. I want to see them all equally developed out at a rate as quickly as possible, and I think we have the means and the funds to do that for the particular avenues that we're pursuing on those sites without tax increases. It's already in our earmark in our budget.
Okay, so yeah, some of the specific concerns that you've all mentioned to us, and we'd like to have obviously a say in these things, is the landings property here on this side of the road, which we're talking about right here, this right here, to preserve green, preserve it as it is, with the provision that some of it can be, this parking can be expanded, right? So that, if possible, here's some ideas that have come about, here's beachfront properties, here's British Landing Drive, to stop traffic so that no longer are cars coming down here. People are concerned about.
I'll say right away, this barricade would have to be wherever the VDOT road ends, or else VDOT would have to agree to give up some of their roads.
Okay, so that's
So
on
that
the
would,
table.
maybe, I don't know what the rules there, but it would be a VDOT issue, where that line would have to be exactly.
Has VDOT not given the county they own that road from the driveway.
Well, past the sign, wherever it is our right of way, we own that. But up past that sign, that's why VDOT doesn't care about the road washing, because that's technically on county park. Until it gets back another 20 feet to the sign.
20 years ago, they abandoned the road when they wanted to put the beach there.
Yeah, that's just the very tip point, but you can see it's slowly eroding back to the VDOT issue, to be a VDOT issue, but I don't think if we got to there, then condos and the marina would be underwater at that
So when
point.
you say the sign and state maintenance?
Yes, that's
Which is right about
basically
here.
where the county line is.
Okay, well, so that's perhaps on the table, but you can't guarantee anything now, certainly. But that's one concern, because as you look at units here on the other side of the pond, units over here, for good reason prize their views, right? They prize coming here and not having a big parking scene, which actually does exist. I mean, it can be a mess at a busy time in the summer, we all know. But that would be nice to funnel parking over here in a reasonable, orderly fashion. And I'm just bringing this up because that's what I've heard from a lot of people. Because it's a primary concern. How is this going to affect us? Because I think it's reasonable to say that, you know, our scene is pretty nice, right? You know, so why mess around with that? So if we can think about things like that, things like, I'm going to let Fulton talk about his charts up here, which is going to bring up a lot of these things. But
Can I give a kind of more of an overview of where we are in the process and
Yeah.
where we would go if this were to happen? Because it's not something like you said, it's gonna happen overnight. So we'd have to have, what I'm trying to get is a preliminary agreement that we can have those basically, the 3 elements the county must have: fishing pier, beach protection, and the facilities to support the pier and the beach access. So those are the 3 things that will have to be on the table: the pier, the beach access, and the facilities to support those in some capacity. Final placement, final design, what's that?
Which facilities do you mean?
Parking and bathrooms. The final design, placement, and all those details are in the next phase when we can move forward with the county hiring a contractor, drawing up final plans or some plans to look at, and then tweaking amongst us all with input, and then agreeing on a final plan, sending that to earmark the rest of the funding or whatever needs to after we go through a bidding process and hire the contractors to start. And at that point, we can undergo the phases of construction, primarily starting with fixing and shoring up the beach part, which is the most critical part of this project.
yeah, so also among the things and facilities would be access to the pier?
So, yeah, all those details of what y'all proposing, I mean, some of this would have to be acquiesced by the marina and what they're willing to put on the table. I mean, the final details of all those things I don't really have a real hard opinion on where they go, but I think if we can get those elements in some capacity, we can get this project done. And if it means coming in here, moving this over some capacity, right away, we can't really mess with any of this. If you've been down there, that's all wetlands. So that would have to be protected, so that's a fair amount right there to not mess with. We could proffer better parking here, but I would want most of this parking to not be hard surface, but to be the same type of material we used over on the ramp, and that's called grass pave, where they put down gravel and then allow the grass to grow basically on these composite materials that allow drainage and prevent a hard surface and runoff, and have to have stormwater management to larger capacities, which you'd have to have if you built a parking lot down here. So we would avoid all that by doing it eco-friendly and within keeping in mind the sensitive area of this natural environment down here.
What I said in the last meeting was that we would, rather than have another road cut across or right-of-way cut across, use our entrance, expand the parking that we've already got, encroach a little on the field that you guys own to expand our parking in that direction.
So you kind of see a little bit here, so
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind if this road were to come in here and we kind of almost abandon this to wherever we could allow to be abandoned based on the VDOT, because the turnaround, once you get down there, is a problem. If you further you move it back, the bigger problem becomes. So that would have to be addressed, but if we were to make this better, maybe tear out that middle thing and then make that wider a little bit, so you kind of have a bigger path in here and not have to deal with that. And then come in here and have parking here somehow that's improved with your bathroom in this area that would be close enough to where it would be easy to connect.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I wanted to point out is
And
this
then,
was,
I don't know, the pier could come out this way, you could have all this with beach access that way. There are things that could be worked out in this that would move some of this way.
yeah,
If
the restrooms could not be on the face of this building. They're gonna have to be
Yeah.
right here where this wall comes down and provides access
Isn't
to
this
the
the
back.
current bathrooms?
This building here is there, well, that's the middle of the building is, but there's a huge power transformer right there, so it would need to be built there and still allow truck access to the back of that building. So it would have to be built along this wall, so it wouldn't hinder anybody's view there.
So, I mean, that part of the phase and details would all be developed in the design phase with a professional who could draw that out and listen to the input and the feedback from everybody and come to some sort of agreement and final placement of those things. But as long as y'all can agree and everybody can agree that those elements can be in some capacity moving forward, we can get this project done. I can move this forward with my board. If I don't have those three elements, I can't, my board's not gonna vote to spend that kind of money to continue working to expand or protect the shoreline. We'll protect what we have already in place and then invest those dollars in our other projects.
So
You
what's the
saying
step?
you could move the pier over on the marina property?
If
Is that
there,
what you said?
I mean, if that proposal would be something like I was just saying, where you come in here, we approve all this parking, you may have to take a little bit more of this space here onto y'all's green space here to improve parking, so they could have basically their side of parking and then public parking on this sort of side for our property and right away. And then if they would agree, the pier could come out somewhere like this.
Would that
Perhaps.
protect us on our side?
And then,
No.
what do you mean?
I mean, the reason we're getting the pier is so that it will help
No.
our erosion.
Well, the breakwaters would protect you.
The breakwaters are what's protected.
The primary protection would come from the breakwaters that would be built, the
So,
shore arm.
I
Okay.
guess the marina would have to give their permission to put the pier there, right?
That would have to go up the chain. I couldn't, I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot I've been
Yes,
granted
the owners.
permission to agree
Right.
to, but that, if the pier is gonna be that far onto the property, then that would have to go up to the investors.
Yes.
But this is actually what the parking lot, the proposal for the parking lot was. So there's the double entrance, so that's where our property stops. So this was actually the proposed parking that would have been built had that project gone forward. So all we're talking about is rearranging what's there, that huge gravel bed and do away with that and change it to this.
Yeah.
But that to me seems a workable plan, and that was, you know, to say as far as the same type of surface used at the boat ramp.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean, that's the most economically friendly, because if you put hard surface there and then have to build stormwater, you're talking $500,000, and you have to have a big pond somewhere, and we don't want any of that.
So what do we need to do as a group to say, go with the three things? What do we need to do? Do we need to have a vote?
I need a preliminary vote from y'all's board to agree to move forward or to work together. As long as y'all can agree that we'll have those three elements in some capacity, I'll work with you to move forward on this project. And go back to my board and say, I've got the board down there in the marina agreeing to work together to develop public access down here with those three elements, and the final placement will work out and with the marina, with you all, and with the county's desire to get those three facilities. So that's what I think we're at.
You know, that Fulton, he's done such a great job with this, you know, he provided all these boards and so forth, and then this, which I think actually explains it pretty well about the various stages. And stage one was really the first meeting that we had. Stage two is the meeting that we're having now. So I think, is it fair to say you're suggesting stage three would be just that, what you just explained?
Yes.
Would we agree to go to stage four, which still isn't a vote, you know? It's just, is it worth pursuing? Does that seem reasonable, what I just said?
I believe, yeah, I mean, this part of hiring and going through this next phase for the county is going to require outlay of assets, and so when we start hiring people and designing phase, I don't want to get halfway through that phase and then the board said, no, we don't want this element, we're not going to do that element. And so once we start to get an agreement and move down the path, I want a firm agreement from this board by a vote that says we're going to move forward by a majority vote with those three elements in it in some capacity. Where the final placement, the final details, the final proffers we get to you all for additional armaments, landscaping, barriers, whatever those things are that y'all desire to be done, will be worked into the design plan with the professionals, and the county will foot those as part of this project.
So
Just as we did over there, we gave them a new road and a new access and paved that and paved the entire road access and improved that entire access, and the county footed that bill, and they didn't have to do anything but agree to work with us. And that's the same thing I want to do here. We have the money and the resources, and we need to develop these public access points, and it's time to move forward, and there's no better time in the urgency right now with
Hey,
what's happening.
Jeff, at what point do we go from board vote, at what stage is it going to go from board vote to entire membership vote?
I would think stage three, or maybe that would be stage four.
Okay.
So, you know, we've kind of bounced around this a lot, but there's a lot of fact finding going on right now. We talked about 6 weeks from now for us to have our collective thoughts put together. And this is random thoughts from Fulton and a few others. Jeff's got hundreds of phone calls, so it's going to take us some time to get all our thoughts together, and now, you know, pick middle of January, plus or minus, when we go to Lancaster County and say, these are all the things that we're thinking about. And then they're going to need a month or 6 weeks to respond back to those comments. And then we've got to document our questions, their responses. At that point, it would, in my opinion, would be a vote to go forward. But between the next 2 or 3 months is when we're going to work through a lot of the general thoughts, not the design, just the overall thoughts, placement of things, size of things, lighting of things, you know, not intimate details in terms of light fixture types, but, you know, lighting is in the park, more lighting in the parking lot, more lighting on the pier.
Yeah, I mean, I would propose a limited amount of nighttime lighting, because if you have nighttime lighting, that encourages people to come down here after hours. And I mean, also, I'm in favor of dark skies in places like this. So there's not few places where you can go and get away from street lights and nighttime lighting. And the more we can limit that in places like this, we need to. I hate it when street lights are out in the middle of the woods or someplace they don't belong. And
so we can chase our tails. Meeting after meeting.
You don't have to worry about me on those types of things. I'm with you on protecting the natural environment here and creating a nice harmony that's already here. I don't want to disrupt the harmony or make this place worse. I want to improve things down here and make it better than what it currently is, the path that it's been currently on for more than a decade or longer, which is a steady decline in a way.
So I would like to ask, if we do approve this, what guarantee would we have that you would build the breakwaters on our property? Could we have that in writing?
Yeah, it would be in the,
I don't want
yeah.
some, oh, we can't afford it.
It would be in the proffer that we would agree to when the final plan is designed and approved. So,
And another thing, you talked about the previous storm we had and all the erosion. A lot of people have a lot of damage to their piers. So if this pier got put in and storms come all the time, and the pier was damaged, what guarantee do we have that the county's going to fix it or let it sit there damaged, or how would that?
Well,
Are you prepared to maintain it?
yeah, the county would definitely maintain the facilities in perpetuity. I think we have a good track of maintaining the facilities we have and responsiveness. So, I mean, that would, of course, be in the agreement as well, that we maintain the facilities and the things in perpetuity.
Would it be possible to build a large flat top jetty?
Yeah, I mean, that was something I
For
thought too,
people.
so like instead of like, kind of like you could go to places like Rudy Inlet or up in New England where they have like big jetties and lighthouses on the end of them. They're basically, the rock is flattened out and natural material flattened out on top with gravel and stuff that makes sort of a path out on it, and that becomes sort of a walking path or fishing pier. Those options would be potentially things that could be done in the final design, but but otherwise the pier would be built to standards that would withstand that to the capacity we could. I mean, you'd always have the potential to have Isabel type of storms or massive storms that could damage piers, and
So the
that's part of
pier,
the natural course of doing business on the water.
so quote, the pier doesn't necessarily have to be a pier.
I mean, the materials that it's built out of can be up for negotiation and final plan. No, it doesn't have to be a wooden structural pier. It could be a rock jetty of some kind potentially, like you see in other places where it's just flattened out the path and people fish off of that. I mean, people now are fishing off the rock, walking down the rock at the base of the bridge and fishing off of it illegally, essentially.
Again, just trying to come up with a process that ultimately results in a vote. If the 6 weeks seems reasonable for us to get our thoughts together, or 4 weeks, if the holidays are coming, what's that period of time?
Jason, what do you want?
I mean, I want to move this forward as fast as possible. I'm going to go back to my board and tell them I've been at another meeting and had another discussion, and it seems like I feel like we're making some progress, and there's seems to be an air of that people want to work with us, and so I'll relay that to my board.
When do you want a decision?
Yesterday.
Today.
I mean, the sooner we act on this, the better. I mean, y'all can see the urgency before you. I don't have to go down there, and you walk down the shoreline, you can see it yourself,
So
you
Jack,
know the process is going to take a long time.
And the people that commented to you, did you get any negative feedback on the pier itself?
Yeah, I've got a lot of concerns, sure.
Concerns, which mainly are what, parking?
Well, it's other things as well. I mean, I think Fulton's got a few things. I mean, trash, throwing
Maintenance.
cut bait
In other
off
words, maintenance.
off the pier that results in seagulls and just a complete change in, the beach as it is. People that like to use the beach and so forth, all of a sudden it becomes sort of, there's trash floating around, the pier is being used and there's trash, there's people throwing out dead fish or, fish that.
On the beach now, so.
Well, there is.
Fish from the fish trap, seagulls. And
Well, yeah, there is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think all those, as the county develops these facilities, the county has to have a plan in place to maintain them and to maintain the order of that.
Again, I'm just relaying what
Trash
people
collection,
have
monitoring
told
the
me.
cleaning things, and I mean, the residents let us know when there's a problem, I can assure you of that,
Well,
because
that's the.
if a limb falls over there on that property over there, I get a call to come clean it up, so.
Well, yeah, so that brings us to a larger issue, which is, how is trash collection gonna work? How is cleanup gonna be? How is that gonna work? Is there gonna be a crew doing that? Is there gonna be an increased presence of, I saw on here, just enforcement of, public, behavior and so forth, what are we opening
I mean,
ourselves
there
up
has
to?
to be rules in place the timing, the public access, and those will all have to be published in the final plan and then enforced. I mean, and enforcement is not just the county. I mean, that's a public-private partnership. We don't know a problem's happening, we can't address it, so that requires somebody to report the issue for it to be investigated and then taken care of. And that's a combination of things of the county's ordinances and the rules we put in place, proper reporting, and then working with the sheriff to make those things that require legal action or enforcement from the sheriff to make that happen.
I don't think you have an answer to this question, but as far as the traffic study and how much use it will get, I mean, you're getting ready to invest a lot of money potentially, so if there's some thought about what would be the quantity of use?
I mean, I can't say to that exactly. I mean, I guess there could be some sort of studies that could be done. There certainly would be the VDOT traffic studies that would be undertaken for the access or changes of this access. They would look at that and give their report in that process, but actual usage, I mean, that's hard to put an actual number on it, depending on a lot of different variables. At this point, our other access points that we do have don't get like an ungodly amount of use or overly amount of use. I mean, the new boat ramp gets a fair amount of traffic, but it's not like it's a robust activity that people are carrying on or partying or have problems at our sites.
There was a traffic study done, if you look around, see these two big boards, that's an approved development, permits have expired. 9 5-story buildings, 250 additional units, and the traffic study was done in 2004, 2005 for that, and it would support, Lancaster County and VDOT said it'll support that without a problem.
The current roadways.
Yeah, I can promise you, I don't think a pier is ever going to generate the kind of traffic this would have generated.
Oh, definitely not. That was not saying, this is definitely a much less intensive in development of that, and that master plan is still approved by the county. They'd have to get the proper building permits and the proper approvals, just as anybody else would from the state permitting agencies, but they could pretty much break ground on that whenever they wanted to without pretty much any other approvals from the county, because the county approved that master plan back in the early 90s at some point. And so if they wanted to build those buildings, they may struggle to build the ones they have proposed here, but that concrete would give them all that access in the water. This would be counted if they wanted to encroach within the Chesapeake Bay Act. This concrete would still count, and they would still be able to build on that if they wanted to as a result of that concrete being there. Or they could proffer that up and use that anywhere else on their property, potentially in a new master plan if they wish to put that before a new board of supervisors.
So how do you see the process going then? We've kind of put some bullets up here. I'm babbling about, dates. But
So I think the three elements are on the table that the county must have: expanded beach access, the public pier, and then the facilities to support those in some capacity. So that's what we need. The final placement, final design can be worked out between what the marina is willing to do and proffer and what the homeowners are willing to proffer, and then we can work toward that design phase. So once y'all kind of give me a preliminary agreement, I'll go back to my board and say, I've got a preliminary agreement. Let's send this to RFP, let's get a designer in, and let's get working with a professional and getting that feedback so we can get one of these kind of plans, one of those kind of plans drawn up from a professional so you can see what it's going to look like in real time. We'll have our own visuals, our own pictures. We'll get those professionals down here to give presentations on site just at one of these meetings, and then we will tweak those plans, and then we will then move forward. Y'all can vote on it, the board will vote on it, and we will send it to bid.
So if we today said, of course you wanted it yesterday, we approve those three things, and then you go and do your work and you present to the board here what you plan to do, and the board can then say, well, wait a minute, that's not exactly what we talked about. Does that stop it? In other words, I think it's important that we get going as soon as possible. If we wait until February, we might be talking 2, 3, 4 years.
My board wants those three elements. They don't care where the exact final placement goes or how it's done or where the nuts and bolts fall.
Yeah.
If those things can be accomplished in this plan, I've got the votes and we've got the funding to make it happen.
Yeah, so
That's
these,
where we are.
yeah, these things might seem a
So-
little detailed, which they are, and this way in the future, but I think the question is that the third thing that we keep on referring to.
All these questions will essentially be answered in that final design
Right, the
phase,
final
working with
thing,
the
which you're
professional.
not, which
So
will
why
come
would we
after the
wait?
fact.
That's where we're going next, if we get a preliminary agreement out of today
Well,
or
to
tomorrow,
get to
or
what
however
Charlie
the
is saying.
process works.
Sure.
A week from now, or right after Christmas, that's up to
You just
you
want
all.
approval of the concept.
And the marina's gotta, y'all gotta be on board too. And
We're good, let's go.
But
Get it done.
what Charlie's getting to is that once we get to this, saying, yes, we approve these three things, it's that third thing, all the facilities and the parking and so forth. How much say do we have in that? Or do we have some kind of veto power, or is it a bait and switch in which, this is the
Well-
thing that people have been telling me? Is it
Again,
something
the
that-
county doesn't care where those facilities ultimately fall in this capacity where we can build them. It's just going to be up to where the best agreement can come between what the marinas have to give up, what you guys are willing to give up, and how we're willing to make it happen in that regard.
The truth
I
of
see
it
no
is-
problem with what y'all kind of put on the table today. There's no need for a boardwalk of any sort except for access from the parking to that. That would again be, in my opinion, naturally built. Much like if you go down to Outer Banks, they build some kind of mesh thing covered with sand. It would look natural and blend in with the environment and use materials that would make it disappear and be as less environmentally impactful and less hardscape as possible. So less of that kind of stuff we can build, and the more eco-friendly and less invasive and less hardscape stuff we can build, the better off we're gonna be.
You
So if
can
we were to-
solve the parking problem very easily by putting a sign saying pier and beach access parking.
Exactly too, and I mean, if we go that route here, doing this, and enhancing parking, and then building a pier somewhere in here, over this way, and having access directly from the parking to the pier, and then to the beach this way, and we could, whatever we can do with VDOT, there could be potential to end this road. We'd still have to create some kind of turnaround at the end that would be better wherever that ends.
Well, was it
So, I
my
mean, that would be the
understanding,
issue that would be, come up with that, where this barrier would be, because the law is gonna require that fire trucks and whatever vehicles get here have to have enough space to turn around, so if you guys had a fire and the vehicle truck couldn't get down here and turn around, the building burns down. Those are all things that VDOT's concerned about, so wherever this barrier is gonna have to give enough space to have ample U or N culvert built to properly
I
build
think
that
given
out.
the erosion that's taking place now and going to be taking place in the near future, if we don't act on this pretty fast, we're going to find ourselves in a heap of trouble.
Every day we wait is a problem.
That's why
I'm in full agreement.
That's why I said you can see what's happening now. I mean,
Okay, so agreeing on these three aspects by us, the landing, doesn't necessarily commit us
Right.
to every aspect of the final project, because we don't know what these details are, even though, we're concerned about them all. But at the very least, it allows you to go to the board of supervisors and say, yeah, they're willing to cooperate with this. Is that what you're looking for?
pretty
The sooner
much.
we do that, the better.
Yes, definitely,
Okay.
because then we can move to the next phase, which is where we start to really
Yeah.
meet the bonus.
No one has a question? I don't think so. But if you ask all he does, I'll listen. Not yet. My understanding is, so there's gonna be a preliminary everything before you get a final vote from the landing, is that correct?
I mean,
For the most part.
at the end of the day, we're gonna have to have something concrete on the table to really have a vote on. This is just sort of a preliminary, as saying, so we can all agree that we're gonna build a public pier, improve the beach access, and then support, the facility support that with those three elements, that we're gonna work together to accomplish that, and y'all have a majority vote to agree to work with the county on that preliminary, get the final plan and put those elements in it and finalize the placement, the proffers y'all want, the extra breakwaters, proper landscaping, barriers, ending the road wherever, and proper VDOT access, all those details we work out with the designer. We'll come down here, we'll have a meeting, we'll bring them down here to a meeting. They can show their boards, pinpoint their preliminary drawings and designs after we've gone through that phase. And say, no, we don't want that there, can we move this here, can we put that there? They can go back, tweak those, send them back, have another meeting, however long we want to drag that on, or however long quickly we can agree to then vote on that final plan. We can vote on it.
And
Y'all can officially vote on that final plan.
Have a veto.
and
say,
then-
hey, we don't like where this is going, can we change it? And then we can do a vote. and-
Exactly, we can tweak the place, but at the end of the day, we're not gonna spend any more money down here. We don't have those three. We're not gonna spend $5 million and not have a pier, and not have more beach access. That would be a waste of taxpayers' money. And the board would have to do that.
Or, the other option is that the pier gets shifted completely onto our property, okay? And then it's just Jason and David and I working on the details. You all don't get breakwaters, you don't get changes to the end of the road, and it's just us making these decisions of where things go, what happens to the view.
Well,
That's the
not what
option.
he said.
I mean,
No, I'm giving you an alternative.
That
You wanna
is the
build the pier down
I
here.
mean, I haven't really proposed that or thought about it, but yeah, I mean, that would be, I mean, most of this is protecting the marina in reality.
We can simplify this, we can shift it and not have to deal with all this.
But, I mean, I want to work with you all. I mean, I find harmony better. Everyone's never going to be completely pleased and think that
No, there's no
everything is
question.
perfect.
There's always gonna
But at the
be-
end of the day, I think if you went over there and asked every resident, I don't think there'd be one over there that would give you any complaints, in my opinion. I have not gotten one call from any resident that's complained about what was done over there and how it's being maintained.
Yes.
Jeff, has our board looked at an alternative plan? And what I'm saying is we've concentrated on this plan, whether yea or nay. If we say no to this plan, what's our alternative plan?
Our
Do we pay the
alternative,
cost? Do we?
yes, we would have to pay the cost, yes. The alternative
Have we looked
plan
at
is,
that? Have we
actually,
counted costs?
in detail, no, but the alternative plan is to see how this works, and then look at the cost of additional breakwaters, which would lead to an assessment of thousands of dollars per unit.
But, you know, 10 years ago, in Beach Cove Villa, it was an $8,000 assessment times 24 units. 10 years later, it's probably $15,000 assessment.
Well, I mean, we've got a few years, you know, for us, but.
Yeah, that is the alternative, is to do what Tony said, say, we'll not get involved with this, we'll see how this works, and then in a few years, basically, we're all gonna have to fork over some big money.
Is
That's,
there any reason why the board can't make a proposal to accept this and then have Jason leave here with the understanding that the board has approved the 3 projects?
That's what.
Is there any reason that can't happen?
probably by the bylaws, we could, I think we'd rather have,
I
you
think
know,
what we
a lot of
should do,
support.
I think the board can vote this week, and I think we can send it to the owners and get a feedback from the owners by the end of the month, and let Jason know something by the 1st of January.
Yeah, I think, you know, the board in a case like this, just to get to the next stage, probably does have that authority to do that. But again, you know, the more support we have from everybody, the better. I mean, just right now, can I have a show of hands who thinks this is a good idea to get involved with? Okay, so.
One hand per unit. One hand.
Yeah, one hand per unit, it's basically most, okay, so.
Do we know what the cost is for taking this project on our own?
Well, you know, to the bay, I mean, the county's done some of that work for us, about $150,000.
This is at least, when we first got the preliminary bid, at least $150,000 worth of work for these 3 pieces right here. So it'd be at least that much money, if not more, probably twice that, because, and I think, given the cost of contracting and materials right now, I don't think we're gonna get that done for what we initially thought it was going to cost. I think this is probably $250,000 today.
There's a difference between a lot of money and $8,000, $10,000, $15,000 assessment per unit.
Right, so it was $8,000 10 years ago at Beach Cove Villa. We have 24 units over there. We have 28 units 10 years later. So it's probably.
Yeah, it's not difficult math. I mean, Harvey's great, you know, work basically shows us we have about 50 grand.
For that,
In the bank.
pieces right there. But
And we don't have $150,000 to spend on this unless we all fork over a lot of money.
For any additional, I had to work with them and do this too. That's not on the table right now, because I want harmony, I want everybody to be happy, yeah, and I think that's what, enough you all to make everyone.
We're done.
Yeah, I think that, you know, with all of your feedback and questions, which helped so much, if you all feel comfortable with the board, or just with what it looks like we've done today, is just say, yes, let's just hear more. The fact-finding mission of this meeting seems to have been successful.
I mean, my guess for you all, if y'all were to undertake y'all's portion over here, would be somewhere in the $300,000 to $500,000 total project cost.
For what? For the-
If you were to pursue your own two breakwaters here, that would protect your landing property just as they did. I don't know what they paid for 10 years ago.
That's what he's saying, he lived over there.
They went 4 times 8.
It was $8,000 each,
Yeah,
and I guarantee it's twice that now.
That's what I just said.
I mean, definitely.
yeah.
So, well.
$25,000 probably wouldn't be out of the question. for
My
everybody.
question is, what's gonna happen to the rest of our beachfront on our side? Is it?
It would be just like that.
Beach co-builders.
I mean, if we just
we go-
put breakwaters in front of the first section. and
You
not
build air
have-
breakwaters here, and you build a two here,
And then
you'll
what
get
about-
this.
I'm not, so is this,
Look how much more enhanced this beach has become.
wait, this is our property, right?
This is your property.
So is this the first row of houses?
Yep, right here, you can see it right
Okay,
there.
so you're gonna put one breakwater there and one on this side.
It would be just like this, that they have here, we're gonna build theirs here, that's already, this is already proposed.
So let's just go ahead and take a somewhat informal vote, and then the board will,
If we could all come together.
Does it seem like yes, we have a majority?
I can probably.
All agree with that?
Yeah.
so the board will vote to go ahead.
Maybe you can answer. My understanding is we're giving a perpetual easement
We've
from
got
our
the same
property.
thing.
That's what's on the table.
Okay. Who will maintain that property? Is that the marina who maintains it, cuts the grass, keeps it looking good, or is that still us?
Because you're
I
exposed.
know what he's gonna answer, he's gonna say that's not even, that's in the details, but, that would be something that's the negotiation. Well,
Yes, I'm saying,
it's broken down, so I think the meeting has, ended. Barbara, do I have a motion to adjourn?
There's a
Huge transformer.
Second.
Adjourn. Meeting is adjourned, thank you all for coming.
Yeah, did you get the consensus?